Hey everybody, it's Ricky's Rockin' Reviews. Today we're going to be looking at The Hunger by Marsheila Rockwell from Aconite Books. This is an original Marvel Zombies novel. I think it's their first one. And they sent me an e-reader copy in exchange for an honest review. So off the bat, it's a really enjoyable adventure novel. There were some things that I didn't expect going into it. You know, you see the cover is like a zombified Doctor Strange. I thought it was just a stylistic choice. You know, it looked really cool, but you know, right away, right off the bat, he becomes a zombie in the beginning of the novel, and it's the inciting incident is that there's an asteroid that hits New York, and all the Avengers, all the heavy hitters, the main team, they go and investigate, and they immediately become zombies. Doesn't really explain where the space rock comes from or what is actually causing the zombie outbreak, whether it's a virus or some kind of mystical thing. But there's a huge problem because these are Marvel zombies, so they have all their powers, and it just makes it even that much worse when they become zombies, and they're turning innocents into zombies as well, or civilians. Doctor Strange is an unfortunate casualty of this. It's kind of fun how he becomes a zombie, but he gets back to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and then basically the story ends up following Zelma, who is his apprentice. She's actually the bookkeeper there, and she's a fairly new character to the Marvel comics. I had to kind of research and investigate who that was, since I'm not reading any of the Marvel or any of the the modern stuff. But she's a cool character. I ended up really liking her. She had a previous run-in with Doctor Strange that kind of put her foot in the door for her job there at the Sanctum Sanctorum. She's inexperienced, but she's willing to learn as much as she can. She is so into the mystic arts, and I really identified with her because of her love of books. And she's a bookkeeper, and she loves all the history and everything that goes into all that stuff. And she also has a real reverence to everything that's actually in the books. She treats it very seriously, and she's wanting to do her best. And she also wants to save Doctor Strange, who has become a very close friend and mentor, even though, he's kind of a jerk sometimes. Just to set up the story, Doctor Strange and Zelma come up with a way to keep his hunger at bay, very momentarily. And they introduced this really cool thing that I'm not aware of from the comics. I don't know if I'm sure it's in the actual comics, but in order for Doctor Strange to summon so much mystical energy, it causes there's like a toll to pay, basically, with pain and with anguish and darkness in his soul. But he's a Sorcerer Supreme, so he can't handle that at the immediate moment, or he can't take on the weight of that at the immediate moment. So he kind of shuns it and puts it away in the cellar of the Sanctum Sanctorum, and all that darkness, all that energy, all that pain becomes an entity that kind of stalks around the cellar, and he forces himself to be in there with it, in order for Zelma to hopefully go out into the world and find a cure or a way to revert everything that's happened. And that's kind of like the main conflict of the story. She has to go out using trinkets and mystical items to try to find people in safety that could help her. And she ends up running into Nico from the Runaways. She also ends up running into Elsa Bloodstone and Deadpool, and then later on a woolly mammoth. And that part is really fun. That was probably my favorite part of the story, discovering how that came to be, why there's a woolly mammoth following Deadpool around. But I really like the dynamic of the team. Elsa Bloodstone, she just wants to kill monsters, and she's kind of going on a tirade because of what had happened to her. She's actually zombified as well. She's the only zombified person in the team, but she actually kind of has Deadpool as a prisoner, and she's using his flesh and taking advantage of his healing factor to keep her hunger satiated. She's kind of antagonistic to everyone else in the team, even Nico, who she's kind of had a history with, because she doesn't believe, she's very pessimistic basically. She doesn't believe there's a real way to fix anything, and she's trying to come to terms with the change that she's going through, or the change that she's trying to keep at bay. And then you have Zelma. She has the cloak of levitation with her because it's not doing any good on Doctor Strange. And then Deadpool's kind of like the comedic relief, although you can definitely feel the change of flavor from some of his more raunchy comics, or from the movies that everyone's familiar with. He's very toned down here, but he's still funny mostly actually in the not so much the things he says, but like the way he's described, the way his mask is described. He has his facial expressions are probably the funniest part to me in the book. And Nico is a kind of a dark, moody person as well. She brings a lot of like actual strength to the team because she's pretty powerful. She has a staff of 1, and it allows her to pretty much conjure whatever she wants. However, she has to use a spell, like a spoken spell, or use her own blood to try to summon things. But if she uses a spell, she can't speak the same words to create the same spell. She's like, once she says something that's kind of out of her inventory, she can't use that again. She would have to use a new language or something like that. So that's kind of like a way to get around that. But it's interesting because the novel ends up becoming like a time travel romp. We go to Deadpool's kind of the reason why they have to time travel a lot. It's kind of hard to explain what they're trying to do with their time travel, but Zelma and the team, they kind of come up with a way to try to like funnel the zombies through like this time loop thing so that they can buy themselves some time, trying to actually figure out a way to change their current zombie outbreak problem. Deadpool is actually kind of the reason why their plan kind of goes haywire kind of. And there's also this other villain that comes into play called Morgan Le Fay, and she was I know she was in the Runaways series, like the TV show. She was like in the 3rd season at the end, but she was a pretty cool villain. There were some really cool surprises, especially towards the end. I already said that I don't really read modern comics, but last year there was a period of time where I was going to the comic book store a lot, and I picked up Avengers 10,000 BC, and I would highly suggest you read that like one shot before you read this novel, because it kind of, the Avengers 10,000 BC, they kind of fit into the 3rd act of the story, and it's super cool. That was my favorite part. And the other thing about the novel that I have to say is that it was just a really cool adventure, but it doesn't seem like it fully resolves at the end. So it definitely looks like they want to make a sequel. I think the only critique I can give it is the fun of the Marvel zombies is seeing them zombified. And there was a lot of instances where there's a ton of Marvel zombies coming at all these characters, and sometimes they're only described as like blurs of color, and you kind of sometimes you have it's fun to a little bit to try to associate who these characters are just by brief descriptions of them. But I would have really liked just to not. I would have liked it to be more straightforward and not have it like hinted at as to who they were fighting. There are so many Marvel zombies. I don't know if there was rules against the author as far as who she can zombify or whatever, but it didn't seem that way because there were so many. There was X-Men, all kinds of other characters. I just would have liked that to be a little bit more straightforward. Like I said, it's a fun novel. It was really cool. It was a good read. If you like time loop stories, if you like zombie stories, if you like adventures, I think this would be a really good fit for your TBR. And thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram as well. I'm always reading comics and posting stories. Thank you guys. Oh, and please leave some comments. I want to get to interact with you guys.